Monday, August 24th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, what if it was open sourced? Let's do this.
Nothing beats a weekend at the beach.
2 weekends at the beach.
I had a good weekend in Wildwood. It was just me and Emily and...
Wasn't it a little bit rainy?
No, it wasn't really.
Really?
Not at all.
It was pretty rainy elsewhere.
The only problem was that we couldn't really swim so much when the lifeguards were on duty.
Because they kept kicking you out because there was...
They wouldn't let anyone into the water because there were like crazy waves.
So basically the lifeguard's job was basically keep everyone out of the water?
But the thing is, when the lifeguards weren't on duty, you could swim. So we'd get there before the lifeguards came out and go swimming. And it was awesome.
Yep.
Lifeguards come and make us stop. But then at 5, the lifeguards leave. We go swimming again. But Saturday, we go swimming for a while after the lifeguards leave.
And then the beach patrol comes?
Well, no. Then a lifeguard comes along and they start yelling at everyone to get out of the water. And the guy is announcing, the ocean is closed for the evening. Do not swim in the ocean. So we get out of the water.
And go in the... You wait until he leaves and go back in the water?
Yes, and everyone does. So all along the beach, you see this wave of people coming out of the water as he yells at them and going right back in as soon as he drives 10 feet further down the beach. He went back and forth for a while, and eventually we gave up and went home to, get dinner.
Yeah. Well, you can't stay in the water forever, especially when it gets dark and cold.
It wasn't dark yet. It never got cold. It was so hot. Scott Johnson's dad turned on the AC.
Holy shit.
Oh my God. I got in. I was like, why are all the windows shut?
That was a mad powerful Eric. That's like, he has this crazy, it obviously looks crazy powerful. Is it crazy powerful?
Well, he turned it on the bare minimum. And you didn't, inside, you didn't notice. You're like, it doesn't feel like the AC's on. Then you walk outside and realize it's 25 degrees warmer out there.
So the front porch was even intolerable?
The front porch was a little too hot to hang out on.
Damn, that front porch even has a ceiling fan. It's such a great front porch. Anyway.
There were some surfers out there. It was good times.
All right, so I got a little thing that is not personal, but then I have a large personal revelation that was saved for the show.
A person? Yeah, Scott wouldn't tell me. All he kept telling me was he's got something to say.
Well, first of all, so I walk out. There's a new guy at work. Whatever, he's a new guy at work. So I walk out of the office, and I work like a few blocks north of Times Square.
Yep.
And basically, traffic is stopped, and it's just people everywhere going, oh, obviously, there's a famous person in the street, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm just like, oh, fuck, tourists, get out of my way, get out of my way, god damn it.
Did it end up being someone cool?
No, someone said that, like, later I was told on the tweets that, like, Britney Spears was on the top of one of the tourist buses.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just like, oh, I looked, and there were some people on top of one of the tourist buses.
Is she still even famous?
I don't fucking know. All I know is I'm like, whatever, all these tourists, everyone's just going, woo. I'm like, do you even like Britney Spears? Why are you going, woo? I mean, like, if I would have known it was her, I would have been like, bitch, you can't sing. Everyone go home.
I would wager.
Bitch can't sing.
Scott, I would wager that the majority of people in the crowd didn't know who was there either. They were just going woo because other people were going woo.
Yeah, it was just
the woo game.
It was incredibly annoying.
It's the real world woo game.
So here's the revelation. You ready for this?
All right.
This is a killer.
Is this on the scale of, let's see, 0 to 10, 0 being, I don't know, Mars Attacks, and 10 being Steppenwolf? How much of a revelation was this?
I know, it's maybe 9.
Really?
Yeah, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So Emily will enjoy this as well. So Rim,
is this like when you realized what the Beatles stood for?
No, this is more than that. This is personal and not otherwise, right?
All right.
So why does Scott not do any exercising?
Because it hurts?
Because it hurts. But there are some exercises I can do, like
I don't know. I've never seen you exert yourself.
Well, swimming.
You can kind of swim.
And also, remember I said I could bicycle forever as long as it's flat?
At like 1 mile an hour, but yeah.
Okay, anyway. So I parked my car up on top of the hill on the street where I don't have to pay.
Yeah.
Well, where you technically do have to pay, but I haven't been able to pay. But the train was coming. So I ran down the hill. All right, and I don't have any asthmas, right? And I don't have any, other sorts of problems in that department, right? But, it hurts when I do any sort of exertions, right?
Uh-huh.
And no doctor has been able to tell me why forever, even though I think they probably would have if they would have put me on the treadmill with the sticky bits and such. Right?
See, because I did the treadmill sticky bit once in my childhood.
I wanted to do it, but they never let me do it. And I think they would have figured out why I could not do any exercising.
All right, I'm really
And
curious to hear.
It took me 27 years to figure it out.
Because I'll point out that a lot of exercise, especially early on, does hurt a lot.
No.
And it turns into not hurting.
No, you know why?
Why?
I have a involuntary reflex. When I exert myself, I hold my breath. And I went online to see if this was...
A lot of people have that.
I went online to see what it was called, and I couldn't find what it was called. I just saw that people have it, and basically I saw like martial arts people mostly saying, hey, don't hold your breath. And it's like, well, that's not really helping me. Because then I'm like, okay. So as soon as I realized it, I was like, oh my God. Because that totally, like, I can swim. Why? Because when you swim, you're supposed to hold your breath.
Well, because I think you have to have the weird instinct, like the broken instinct of hold breath. But in the water, there's the contrary instinct of don't drown.
That's the thing is, like, if I run a long way, like when he ran with James in that little around the RIT thing.
Oh yeah, the Chase Corporate Challenge.
The Chase Corporate Challenge, right? I hold my breath, but because and then eventually when I'm gonna die, your body makes you breathe, right? But basically, because you held your breath and then ran a bunch, you're now wrecked and you can't do anything and you fall over. And that's why if I'm biking flat, I'm not exerting. I'm not stressing. Right? But if I go up the hill, then I just fall over and die because as soon as I start going up the hill and I have to push hard, I start holding my breath.
See, because the thing is, there are points where you hold your breath when you're exercising. Like when you're lifting weights, there's
and that's
point
why
where you hold, points where you breathe out, breathe
I can't
in.
do a push-up. That's just because my arms are weak. But I can only try like once or twice before I'm just like lying on the floor because while I'm pushing, I'm not breathing. So I tried to...
Do you want to take some weights?
No,
and while you're lifting, I'll just keep yelling, breathe!
I tried to consciously, breathe.
Don't breathe
I was
no
basically
more.
I was like, okay. I stopped on the hill on the way down, and I'm like, okay, consciously breathe now that you've realized this, right? So I'm like, okay, I can... So I breathe in, I start running, I didn't breathe out. And I was like, fuck! So I don't know... I need some,
Here's what you need.
A doctor couldn't diagnose me, but I need a doctor... solution. And I think that there has not been enough study in this area.
I think that's a fairly simple solution, but it would hurt at first. You should take a martial art because in Kung Fu, you realize he would basically make us punch ourselves in the stomach and do all these hard exercises. And the whole time he would yell at us.
I can't punch myself in the stomach. I'll get an appendix explosion.
Well, that comes after you make the muscle a little stronger than nothing. That's like
I
halfway
also have
through
stomach
the class.
problems. I need a non-stomach exercise.
But half of what he would do is force you. He'd make you do exercises where you breathe in and breathe out in very specific rhythms based on what you're doing. And he would hit you if you weren't breathing in or breathing out at the right time.
I need to hire the non-breather hitter.
Yeah. You want me to hit you? I'll hit
you. Only if I'll hit you. I also read this is also very dangerous apparently because when I was searching for it, I didn't know what to search for. I couldn't find any scientific word to describe it.
So you're searching for what? Stop breathing?
I'm searching for not breathing while exerting or not breathing while exercising or not breathing while running. And I found some people and I found people who had it and people who told you just basically the only advice was fucking breathe. There wasn't any other helpful advice. And it's like, I tried that already. It didn't work. So I need something else. I don't know. Or a word, I don't know.
There's definitely an instinct when you're not terribly, or you're doing something that's more exertion than your body's ready for, to hold your breath during the exertion. So if you're continually exerting and you're not used to it.
But basically, if I try to do any exercise at all, I involuntarily hold my breath, use up all the oxygen in my body, and then fall over, and then breathe a whole bunch.
So you should come run. I'll pace you. We'll run. And every 10 seconds, I'll say, Scott, breathe.
I need more than 10 seconds. I need to consciously breathe before I start moving.
Do you want me to make you an audio file? I need you to say, breathe in, breathe out.
I don't know. It didn't work because I told myself to breathe in and out. I didn't.
What if you have an audio tape telling you that?
I don't know. I had to try it.
I could follow you. I could follow you with a 10-foot stick.
I just want to know why. I want to know why a doctor couldn't tell me this, right? The doctor was checking for what's it called when your nose is bent out of shape?
A deviated septum?
Yeah, he's checking for that, and he's checking for all this other stuff, right? No, they're checking for the asthmas. I don't have any of that shit, right? And he's like, oh, I don't know, right? But apparently this is common enough that I could find it on the internet that a bunch of people have it, but there's no word for it. A doctor can't tell you when you have the problem, I guess, without really investigating, right? And I don't think there's been enough study in this area at all. It could be a neurological thing, I don't know, but it's apparently really dangerous because I was reading an article came up about like deep sea diver people and how they get wicked brain damage because they, exert themselves like swimming while holding their breath for far too long.
Well, part of that is because of it's very different breathing scuba
Well,
air.
they also, no. I mean, deep sea divers like pearl diver types, not scuba. Scuba's fine.
Nah. Well, here's the thing: when your body passes out or you hold your breath for too long, the body forces you to breathe.
Yeah.
If you're deep sea diving, you can breathe in. So you kind of
but they were
circumvent
talking
that.
about like deep sea divers like who hold their breath for like really long, like minutes.
Yep.
Getting Dane Bramage. So I don't think that's me.
Well,
but
the thing
it's
is,
still a
Scott,
concern.
if you hold your breath for too long, your body will start breathing. Unless you're underwater.
Yeah.
The key is to not go underwater until you figure this out.
I like swimming more than anyway. But I have to go and experiment and see what I can do. But I don't know how much I can do because I tried that and it didn't work.
Nah.
So I had to get some sort of help now that I at least think I know what the problem is. I don't know.
Though I did, at work at least, I finally got knocked out of the ping pong tournament. And
you got back into the winner's bracket or did you lose in the loser's bracket?
I made it a little bit further, and then I eventually lost in the loser's bracket to someone who was really good, who was knocked out by the guy who knocked me out right away.
Oh, okay.
And those two
Was it a close match in the loser's bracket, though? Was it the loser's bracket finals at least?
I got pretty far in the loser's bracket, but then the one I finally fought was basically like the second best person.
Oh, okay.
So I lost by.
So you're not the second best or the first best.
Nope, but I'm definitely in the top 10. And there are like 30 people who play ping pong regularly in the company.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
I'm doing okay, but
top 10, not bad.
I played against.
It's pretty big, 30 people. I mean, there
I
are
played
30
against
people on
my
my floor.
boss's boss, and I beat him.
Was that the boss of all bosses?
No, he's just the boss's boss.
So there's a boss's boss's boss?
Well, yeah, he's a VP, so there's only one level above the VP, and that's the P.
You played someone who was one level below the top boss.
Yes.
Okay.
And I beat him.
Wow.
By using tricky English. He was trash talking up a motherfucking storm, let me tell you.
That's how he gets to be where he is.
He comes in, he puts on a headband, he starts swearing, he's ready to go.
It's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, and so all I did was just backspin, and I won.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's a good boss when he's backspin, when he's trash talking.
Yeah, trash talk is pretty much one of the few indicators of a solid human being.
Yes.
Or an asshole.
Same thing.
Yeah. So what do you got in the news?
Oh shit, what was the news?
Monday.
All right, so Wikipedia, right, is actually, believe it or not, they're going to exert some editorial control on Wikipedia.
Well, they've done a few things like that in the past.
So what they're doing basically is if there is any modification to a page of a famous person on the English site.
Oh, they've already had policies like that.
No. The change has to be approved by a certain... The change will not show up on the site at all, right? Until a... like Wikipedia approved person goes and like puts the okay on it. So like if you go to a famous person's page and put in like, this person, I don't know,
rapes babies.
Was in Times Square today making Scott's life slightly difficult, right?
Same as raping babies,
right.
effectively.
Then that won't appear on Wikipedia. Everyone will see the old unedited page. And then a Wikipedia approved person will come in, see that, and sort of click the green checkbox if it's good, or click the red checkbox or the red X.
It's about time.
No good.
I was thinking in general, Wikipedia should have, for certain kinds of scientific articles and things that are pretty objective, have a way to have the kind of certified version of the page, and then updates, but you can look at the current version or the certified version.
Yeah, like the dev and the stable.
Yep, like certified by some expert in the field, maybe a consortium, something like that.
Yeah, something long. It's not the worst. The thing is,
Wikipedia
I wonder
if trade ideals for pragmatism.
Yeah, I wonder if the people who though are doing the green check and the red X flags know enough, or are these are they going to pay these people? What if I make a change to a famous person's page, but they're not that famous, and no one ever comes to give me the green checkbox, even though it's true?
There was another article a while ago about how the Wikipedia community, now that all the trivial editions are done, has really slowed down, and there's a very small core of very dedicated professionals and almost no one else contributes anymore.
Well, because it's very difficult to find something to contribute. I mean, if there's a news item, it gets immediately. Someone dies, boop, page updated, right? So it's like, what can you possibly do unless, talk about stuff that you're like the expert on?
Or do what I do, which more people need to do, which is just go through every time you find a grammar or like typo mistake, anything like that. Just fix it anonymously.
Yeah, that's what the only big changes I ever make to Wikipedia are like when I go read an article about something and I see something blatantly wrong, I just go and, do the little fixes. I can't write a whole article. There's no whole article for me to write.
I used to go out and attack certain pseudoscientific articles and basically make them
It's
scientific.
not worth the effort.
I
It's
won.
so
I won some of my battles.
What the baby one?
Last I checked, the Indigo Children article was okay, thanks largely to me.
Good job.
Basically, I went in.
You saved some indigo children.
I went in every couple weeks and added the word allegedly in front of almost every sentence.
Okay, so got any news over there?
Of course, remember, I want to point out that part of the reason they're probably doing this, and they used to have a similar policy, not with the holding back the edits.
It's because you can get slandered, libeled for this kind of stuff.
They have a very strong policy about articles about individual people who are still alive.
Yep.
But I want to talk a little bit about parking meters in Chicago, because this is a really bad story. Basically, the city of Chicago purchased a 75-year lease on so-called smart, user-friendly parking machines.
The same kind they have in New York City?
Kinda. From Morgan Stanley.
All right. Morgan Stanley, isn't that a financial
Well,
firm?
a Morgan Stanley consortium.
Okay.
So
then-
basically, they bought this 75...
Diebold would be a better choice.
They bought this 75-year lease on these parking machines that everyone hates.
Oh, wait, they leased the machines.
That's common.
Okay.
But basically, the machines suck. And everyone agrees that they're terrible and they're a waste of money. There's a gigantic scandal
They
about
didn't
them.
check out, so it was probably a lowest bidder situation where they didn't check the machine, the quality.
Well, no, part of the problem is that the machines, get this. So now if you want to park in these areas where they use these machines in Chicago, you have to park on the street,
Okay.
walk like 4 blocks over to these little boxes.
That's too far. You need one in every block.
There aren't that many of them.
It's not enough. Okay.
Yeah, some of them are only a half a block away. It's still a ways, though.
It depends where you park. I mean, you could park right next to it, right?
And then you've got to, type in your stuff and put your money in, get a receipt,
Put it in your window.
go back to your car, and put it in the window.
Yeah, that's with the New York City. The ones in New York City, they do the same thing. The thing is, there's boxes all over the place.
Well,
If
also,
you park,
the ones in New York
there's going to
City-
be one on the same block.
The ones in New York City are a lot older, and I note that in smart
They're
cities,
not that old.
they're old compared to these brand new ones.
Okay.
Plus, New York's had that system for a while.
A little while, but I mean, New York had just plain old quarter in the meter for like fucking ever.
Yeah, a long time ago. They moved into those boxes.
Less than like a decade ago.
That's a long time in this sort of thing.
So,
Anyway, what a lot of smart cities do is just have machines where you type in the space number.
yeah, that's how the train station here does it.
But-
I think that what they should do is not the space number. You should type in your license plate number.
Actually, that is what every other civilized country does. On your cell phone, you text in, you make an account, and you text in like your license plate
But what
number.
if I don't have a cell phone?
You know what? Screw you.
That's right. We need to start, if we want people to adapt modern technology that will help them, it's like people have this thing where they won't get a technology until they need it, right? But at the same time, they don't need it until they have it. Like, for example, I always use the same example. Someone lives in a small town and they say, I don't need a car. Everything is in walking distance, right? But if they had a car, they would leave town. And if they left town, then after seeing what was outside the town that they never left before, they would want to leave the town. And thus now they only need the car after they've had the car, right? It's like you only need the cell phone after you've had it. You have to have it first before you realize
Scott,
that you need it.
that-
And so I think we need to find any way possible to make people need technology that they don't think they need.
But at the same time, if their lives are working fine, do we need to change them?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's better for them and they just don't know better. It's bad medicine.
But at the
situation.
same time, by having these magic wizard powers that not everyone has, we're basically in this separate, wonderful world. And by keeping people out of it, we just maintain our eliteness
So you don't
forever.
want to help the people. You just want to dominate the people.
I don't know. I'm putting.
Is that the difference in you and me?
I'm putting forth
I
an
want to
idea.
empower all the peoples because that makes it. The more people using it,
The more fundamental problem here with these parking
it'll reach
meters
the critical mass.
in general is that there is a huge problem in like upstate New York, and by upstate I mean like the 30 miles north of Yonkers, where all these little small towns along the Hudson, and they don't have enough parking. And a lot of small towns don't have enough parking.
A lot of places, Boston doesn't have enough parking.
Well, I'm not only talking about small towns right now,
Okay.
but they don't have enough parking. And they want to, like, the root problem is not enough parking, and they want to encourage people from out of town to come in, park for like a couple hours, shop, put money into the community, and then leave. They don't want residents parking there. They don't want anyone in the town parking there. And they don't want anyone parking there because they have an apartment nearby or, parking long term. So they're making ever increasingly technological hurdles to using the parking spaces. Things like pressure plates that determine, all right, I've parked here. I pay for like my 4 hours, which is the minimum I can pay for. I'm not allowed to put more money in without moving my car. And if I move my car,
leave in 4 hours.
but if I move my car, the meter resets to 0.
Yep.
So if I park for 15 minutes just to go to the dry cleaner, I got to pay for 4 hours. The person who comes after me can't use the rest of my time. It's gone, and the city gets the money.
Yep.
And there are a ton of small towns that are basically using technology with parking meters and more advanced technology to solve the wrong problem or to generate revenue streams and only in the end make things worse for everyone living in the town.
This is true. However, I recently read this article. I got to read more.
You bring this article up all the time. I got to actually read it.
What do you mean all the time?
You've brought this up a lot. The article about how if we actually took into account what parking spaces cost.
Yeah, I think there's actually a book about it called like Parking Isn't. I forget what. I gotta find the link and show it to you. But basically, this guy he said his whole thesis is that the actual cost of parking is like ludicrous. Like,
thing is, it
it's
depends on where you
insane.
are. You realize,
Of course, it depends where you are.
But yeah, it was like in the Midwest or in towns that are made new recently. Parking is effectively free because that land wouldn't be used for anything anyway.
Yeah, but he just talks about the actual cost of a parking space, and I'm sure it's very detailed if you wrote a whole book about it. And, how even when people charge for parking, they're not charging anywhere even remotely close to the actual cost of the space. And it's actually, it turns
Scott,
out that when you look at the
time-
math, there's actually this gigantic government subsidy on parking because of the way it works out.
Well, Scott, here's the question though: if they're not charging enough, how come parking garages make crazy tons of money?
I'm just saying that's what this guy says.
Yeah, but how do they make so much money?
He says it's effectively a government subsidy on parking.
Curious how though, because
I just saying what he says. I'm not saying I agree with it. What are you asking me? I just read like a synopsis of his thing.
I know.
I didn't read the whole thing. You're attacking me like I'm the guy.
Well, because you brought this article up more than once.
I'm just bringing it up.
I
I'm not
know.
saying I agree with it or that I know about it.
I'm just saying that
this guy's out there and this is what he says.
All right, Scott, I'm just pointing out that the fact that I can come up with a couple of, I think, pretty smart refutations immediately and out of nothing means
I'm
that
not disagreeing with your refutations. I'm just saying there's a whole book, and I'm sure that there are things in that book, because I didn't read it, that said probably answer your questions.
But I'm
or
saying-
at least are bad answers to your questions.
the point I wanted to really bring up with this article is that, and we see this a lot, that people will seek technological solutions to the wrong problems. And when those solutions do not solve what they're actually trying to solve, and they solve some other problem, they will continue to invest in the sunk cost of the wrong solution to the wrong problem, trying to fix the root problem that could never possibly fix. It's like trying to make a line, like a wire between two poles, be perfectly horizontal. It is 100% mathematically and physically impossible.
That is
but yet they
true.
keep pulling harder and harder and harder on those poles.
Yep.
And I don't know what to do about it, but
Well, you know how you could do it, though? You could have a third taller pole that sort of lifts the wire up.
but then
where
it's
they
not horizontal.
What do you mean?
All right, Scott, so now you've got two horizontal wires that are each bowing slightly in the center.
Ah. All right, you know what you could do, though?
10
is-
poles.
No. You could have just, you could do like a suspension bridge, and basically the wire that you want to be horizontal will be like the suspension bridge.
You want to have
You'd have all these cables just suspending tiny segments of the actual cable itself.
Scott, you know what the real answer is? It's okay to let it dip in the middle. Doesn't hurt anything.
Here's another solution. Don't use a cable. Use like a steel beam that's straight.
Those dip a little bit in the center.
No.
Yeah, they do.
You make like a big old I-beam and just lay it down across two poles.
Some minuscule amount.
Oh, come on.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Tiny bit.
Yeah.
Microns. Submicrons.
Yeah,
individual
okay,
atoms.
You want to play that game? You want to play that game? Poop just went in your mouth.
Well, no, you see, there were 2 XKCDs about that and 2 wonder marks about that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue with this show.
But it's more that people will engage in futile behavior and they'll blame the technology as opposed to their poor use of the technology.
That's true.
And aside from that, the only reason we can't have nice parking meters is because not everyone has nice phones in America. And even people who do don't know how to use their phones. And it's kind of like how we can assume that any adult who is a productive member of society has a credit card and a bank account. You can just assume that. And anyone who doesn't have both of those things kind of exists in this pseudo economy that's underneath the main economy and usually doesn't interact with it directly.
Funny story. My brother's car got hit. He was driving. He got hit. You know what it was? Guy with no license, not a U.S. citizen, no insurance situation. You know,
It happens a lot.
happens all. And
So
the guy's brother who spoke English like offered to just fix it and make it go away. But my brother just called the police.
That's what I would do.
Just had to take care. You know.
That's why I pay for supplemental. You know, I don't even have collision on my car.
Oh, collision's like the one that you're probably going to use.
No, but I don't pay for it because I'm not going to hit anyone, and I'll
Well, because
sue.
I think you don't care about your piece of shit car.
No, but
If you
two,
got a new car, you'd get the collision.
what I do pay for is supplementary uninsured motorists, so that
It's the most important.
if anyone uninsured hits my car, they're fucked, and I'm covered.
That's right. All right.
Oh well, but there's this whole problem where
You're saying the same thing over and over again.
no, the whole bank account thing, that because we can assume the majority of people who are productive and in the economy have bank accounts or credit cards, things like that. Every business can just make these assumptions and we can have this higher level of business, this higher level of economic discourse. But with technology, you can't assume that any given person has an email address yet. Sad but true, you just can't. Businesses, if they need an email address, they're going to run into a lot of people who just don't have
Well,
one.
people also, the email addresses change frequently and they're unreliable and people don't check them.
Exactly, but technological people don't have these problems.
Yep.
Or with cell phones, I mean, you can't assume that everyone has a cell phone. There are still payphones all over the place. And there are a lot of people who rely on them in the case of emergency because they just don't have cell phones. So we can't make large civil structures reliant upon cell phones. We still need this like backport technology. But in economics, we've gotten to the point
I
to
think
where
it's easy to solve it. What we can do is we can just say, all right, listen up. This is what's going to happen.
Everyone gets a cell phone?
Anyone who has plain old telephone line, anyone who doesn't have a plain old telephone line or a cell phone at all, neither one.
everyone has it. Most people, the people who don't have a cell phone, a number of some kind, landline or whatever, are in the same class of people who don't have bank accounts.
Exactly. So anyone who has a landline telephone, we'll just give them a free piece of shit cell phone that doesn't do anything but make calls and be like, here you go. This comes with your local telephone line.
And what do you do when they never charge it because they don't know they have to?
Well, that's just tough shit. But at least when you ask them for their cell phone number on a form, they'll have something that they can type in and complete the form. You can make it a required field because they have one.
It's annoying to me in general that there are things.
And if they don't bring it with them and then it causes them trouble because they don't have it, that's tough shit. Because
There
they
are a
can't
lot of
say,
things I could
didn't
be
have one.
doing.
You can say, yes, you did have one. You didn't bring it.
There are a lot of things I could be doing that would make my life a lot better, like at RIT when I could order all my pizza online, just like that.
I can order Chipotle online. It's in the same block as my office. I don't have to cross any streets to get to
But
it.
at RIT, it was all integrated. You could go to the same site to order from all those places.
Fucking at 2 a.m. when the pita pit would just walk up
Oh
to the
my
door.
God. I miss that so much.
Imagine if we could punch some numbers while we're doing the show, and Pita Pit shows up at the door when the show is done. That is like,
But no,
fucking-
no.
who needs a mansion or a Ferrari? I want Pita Pit online delivery.
But no, instead, if I want to order pizza, I got to call the guy on the phone, and the pizza places around here suck. Some of them just don't even answer. The last time I called a guy, I didn't have the menu. I asked for
They
Hawaiian
don't know
pizza.
where our house is.
He didn't know what Hawaiian pizza was. So I was like,
Who
fine, how
wants
about
a Hawaiian pizza anyway?
how about a margarita pizza? He didn't know what that was, so I told him what it was, and then he made it. He was like, so what, you want pepperoni?
You should have just said yes, pepperoni, fine.
Yeah, fine. But anyway, things of the day. So I'm sure many of you already read XKCD, but just in case, it's just too relevant. It's not even a joke. This isn't actually funny because it is 100% true. It's kind of like when I read some Dilberts from back in the day and I look at my job at IBM and all I can think is, you know what? That is in no way an exaggeration. That is exactly what my job is like.
There is one thing that was recently modified on this chart, though, is you got to add, in addition to the Google aspect of the flow chart, you need to add the Stack Overflow trilogy is right past the Google part. It's like Google doesn't work, Stack Overflow trilogy. That doesn't work, then go back to
Well, here's the thing. Stack Overflow is when you're looking for an answer and you're going to ask it. I wouldn't ask it in this situation because I wouldn't care.
I guess, but yeah.
And also, Google, if the answer was already on Stack Overflow, it would find it.
That's true.
But it is the flowchart of literally how to be the local computer expert pretty much anywhere in the world. And I am
it's how to be the anything expert.
I am so dead serious
almost anything expert.
When I say that this is literally all that I do when anyone asks me a computer question.
Yeah.
There's no other thing I do. I have no special knowledge. I don't even know a lot about consumer
This is how we learn
anymore.
the computer shit, is we just did this so many times that eventually we remember some of them.
But even then, like, my work is so divorced from normal computers that if someone asks me like an Outlook question or like a Microsoft Word question or even a Windows question,
You have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know what to do. I don't know how to use Outlook or telephones, but I know how to like make websites.
Yeah, I learned how to use some stupid.
I know how to do like some crazy embedded Linux shit, but I don't know anything about fucking, like Microsoft PowerPoint. how to get a video to actually fucking work.
But this,
if it's possible,
is 100% straight up, absolutely, literally, exactly what computer people do when you ask them a stupid question. So you can use this flowchart and do it yourself. And I'm not kidding, it'll work every time.
Unless you're a moron. Okay, so this is actually pretty cool. When people are programming things, right, there are often the hacky last-minute solutions, right? So, often, the hacky last-minute solution is something that the programmer dreads. It's like, do I really want to do this? It's sort of painful to do it. But often, it is humorous, especially when it is related to video games. So here are 10 actual real-world examples of hacky bullshit that was put into video games.
Ooh.
Right? So my favorite example is one where basically they were making this game, right? And in like level 10, like one of the objects needed to be invisible, but they couldn't make it they wanted it to be hidden, but it just wouldn't work like in the map editor. So rather than redo the whole map, they went into the game engine and they basically put in like if level equals 10 and object ID equals 58, object ID 58 is hidden.
Wow.
And what happened is they later had other people using the game engine to make other games. They sold it out like Unreal.
No one could figure out how to make something hidden?
No. It's somebody was making a game and they're like, they made in level 10, the 58th object they made kept disappearing. And they called him up with because for the support, and they're like, hey, how come this object keeps disappearing? What do we do? Just make a 59th object. Just but yeah, that was that's
Stuff
just
like
one
that
of
is
the
fun.
That's just one of the examples in this funny website.
That is very close to why I enjoy negative worlds and things so much in video games.
Yeah, so you should read this for more similar humorous anecdotes and that particular humorous anecdote as well.
So we were debating some sort of what if show tonight. We won't go super long on this, but I think it's a good concept we could explore in much more detail. But we were thinking about what if something crazy happened? Like what if Windows went open source?
Well, I mean,
real?
I started thinking of the question of what would you do if you were in charge of Apple? Well, the answer is always I'd open source everything and be the good guy. And I'd live a life of luxury with all the monies. And it's the same situation. It's like, what if you were in charge of the phone companies? I'd stop being a dick. I'd give everyone unlimited everything for a low, low price, and I'd make the network not suck, and I'd let you use any phone with any app. And it's like, okay, there's nothing really exciting to talk about in that question. So I was like, the more interesting question is like, if the shit was open source, what awesome thing would you do? It's like, because
what would you do?
Like if the iPhone, it's like, okay, sure, the iPhone's open source now. What are you gonna do that's so awesome now?
Podcast syncing over the airwaves.
That's a good one.
And Google Voice.
Google Voice.
That's it.
That's a good one too.
That's it. That and multitasking.
Yeah. No, I would do Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, exchanging of music and video that was completely uninhibited in any way whatsoever. So like you could just go to your, connect from your iPhone to your friend's iPhone and just be like, here's my MP3. Just sends it to him and now it's on his iPod, no problem. Why doesn't the Zune freaking do this? Why doesn't anyone do this? There's no technological problem preventing this.
Well, the media
right?
companies might sue them.
It's
but-
tough shit. We didn't do it. It's not illegal to do that. People are exchanging their files that they have legitimately.
Yeah.
So?
The thing is, all the companies who are in a position to do it are too enmeshed in the media companies and all the businessy stuff to do it.
I would totally do that so quickly.
So, Scott, the question on the show then is, what would you do if Linux were open source?
Everything I'm already... Notice, isn't it so weird, right? It's like, if Linux were open source, which it is, what would you do? And it's like, well, I don't really do anything because, part of it is because, Linux is an operating system kernel, and I'm not really a kernel kind of programming guy, so there's not much I can do in that area without lots of work. But it's also sort of because... It's been done. It's like everyone's fucking doing it. They jump on it before you can even get there.
Well, except for media support and sound
People
support.
are working on it. There's actually some big... Did you see? Oh my God, there's a thing... you're going to love this. Ubuntu is coming out with this thing called Quickly.
I was looking at that at work.
Did you see that? I sent you the link.
My coworker was looking at it, actually. He's more a developer than I am.
Yeah. It's basically what they did is we come up with all these web frameworks to help you, like Rails and Django, that, to make web pages, with a nice, model and everything, right? Ubuntu just basically came out with the same thing for desktop apps. So it's like, yeah, just use this and it's real easy to make Ubuntu desktop applications. So I'm like, holy shit, that's like way ahead of Microsoft right there. Way ahead. It's like XNA for like desktop applications. That's a big deal. And I think I might learn it and make something. I mean, who knows?
Make me a resound that doesn't crash.
Yeah, well, the Joe Kosher was sort of gonna be that.
That hasn't gone anywhere.
Didn't do anything.
And Audacity, they keep talking like Audacity's gonna go somewhere, but it's not. It's
if
the
you
same
get me,
stupid
I need
Audacity.
to get like a book of like audio algorithms, and then I need to get a book about like wave files, right? And then I can just get all the open source decoders and encoders, right? And I can convert everything to wave format.
Thing is, lads,
and then I can get an open source fast Fourier transform. And then once I have all those pieces that I don't have to reinvent those wheels, I just have to implement the algorithms as they are in the audio
thing is,
book.
with Ladspa, there are a lot of plugins that do all those things. All I really need is the good interface.
Oh, you just need the interface.
The interface is
so
all
what you
I
can do the
need.
interface because it uses Glade, which basically is just a drag and drop, draw your interface, and then it makes an XML file that defines the interface. You can do all that. Then you just bind the interface to the methods in the thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I need is all the rest of the code onto the interface.
It comes with, you can just steal it from reusable libraries and such, like Lame and such and such.
It's already too much work. I don't have time.
Well, it would take you longer.
That's
than it
the
would
answer.
take me.
What would I do if anything was open source? And the answer is nothing because I'm too busy.
Yeah. But I guess it's more about, I would do all that kind of shit for the iPhone if I didn't have to do it in like Objective-C and they didn't, there's no app approval process crap. I do the same shit for like, any portable device, just freely transfer files between the devices, run any app, do all that stuff. Maybe to have like a video edit. They need some video editing on there. There's no, it's like
nothing.
A lot of them let you take videos, but they don't let you edit the videos. It's like, even like the iPhone, actually, I took some pictures with the iPhone like yesterday. And when I pushed the picture button, it looked fine. And then later when I uploaded to Flickr, they were blurry. I was like, what the hell? It didn't give me like this usable picture preview. It lied to me. It told me the picture was fine.
That's one thing I can say. The pre is like perfect.
The pre is a lot better with the pictures. There's no doubt about that. What would you do if like the Windows were open source? That's like the notorious one.
The thing is,
right?
I think there's the what would I do personally if I had the time to code and everything?
Yeah, we're assuming that you can do it and you have time to do it.
Because I would look more at Apple. Apple's what I really want to be open source.
Yeah, it's mad closed.
Because what I would do is I would add goddamn refresh buttons to every single window and dialog in all of fucking OS X.
All the Finder.
Oh my god, everything would refresh.
Yeah.
I could refresh it manually.
Well, I'd fix all the stupid keyboard shortcuts. That's what I would do.
I would remove the Apple key entirely and use the Windows key.
Yeah, well,
there'd be no more function key.
The command key is the Windows key, right? That's the secret that people don't realize.
But I would make it act like the Windows key. There'd be no like Apple key. It would be exactly
Everything
the same.
would be Control and Alt and not, command. Command would not be used for keyboard shortcuts unless the Windows key were also used for those.
I would also figure out all the contexts of all the different things in OS X. And I would then make a banner added to the bottom of every window and every program telling you what context you were in.
Yep. That's
it.
That's good. Yeah, I would also make it so that you could maximize a window and it would actually perfectly and nicely maximize. It wouldn't be like, yeah, we'll sort of stretch out a bit here. We won't really,
It always bothers me. I hit maximize, the window gets like 10 pixels bigger. I'm like, what the fuck?
It's like, I want to actually, let me lay out these windows in a nice grid. Why are you making me sort of, waste all this desktop space just so I can, forcing me to be fast and loose? Screw that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, with Windows, it's tough because there's not a lot I would
Because I
do.
think the problem with Windows is that, even though it's closed source, everything already exists for Windows. It's like maybe what I would do for Windows, right, is I would sort of rewrite the front ends of it. Like I would take the Windows kernel and so that it could run any Windows application, I'd get all the libraries and all that stuff, right? All the under the hood parts. Maybe, I guess what you could do if Windows is open source, right? It would be really like Wine would basically be gangbusters, right? So what you could do is you could basically take it and fork it and make a perfect implementation of the Windows API such that you could run any Windows application on a machine that's not running Windows. And it would work perfectly. As if it was Windows. And I guess you could do the same thing with Mac. Like if OS X was completely open source, every part of it, then you could just re-implement the entire API. You could just take the code and, just use it, reuse it, and you can make like this wicked, crazy fast, machine that could run any Linux, Windows, or Mac application just natively with no virtual machines whatsoever.
Well, if I'm going wishlist-wise, I would just make the Windows kernel para-virtualized.
Well, isn't it
able
isn't it
to be
already?
para-virtualized.
You can use Microsoft's virtualiz that they bought. What's it called?
But you can't use it just like straight up with VMware or Zen yet.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, that is. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, Zen only works with Nixes. It doesn't work with OS X or yeah. Yeah, that's something else, right? Is like if you're on a Mac and you use a virtual machine thing like VirtualBox or Parallels, you can run Linuxes, of course, in any virtual environment. But you can also run Windowses. On Windows, you can run Windowses and Linuxes in your VMware, but you can't run OS X in your VMware on Windows. You can't run OS X on anything but a Mac. But if it was open source, you could run your OS X, on your PC that you bought built from Newegg. You could run it in your virtual machine on your Linux box. You could run it just freaking anywhere.
See,
so I really think if OS X is open source, there would be a lot less Mac purchasing. I think there'd be a lot of people running OS X on all sorts of other devices.
But at the same time,
Macs.
I feel like Apple could still make money in that world in the long run with they have good industrial design. They'd have to cut their profit margins, but if they just made different styles of embedded or small purpose-specific, think about the wonderful industrial design of the Mac Mini right now. That thing is a beauty to behold.
Well, the thing...
What if they made like 10 different computers that were like that for different purposes, like the car computer and the house computer?
Yeah, well, the car computer you don't see. But I think Apple's big thing is that their business model is sell hardware. And everything else, iTunes, OS X, whatever... All those things are just there because they sell hardware. That's why the Snow Leopard's only $30. It's coming out Friday, by the way. Is because they're not trying to sell you Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard only exists because it's so awesome and it only runs on the Mac hardware, so it makes you buy the Mac hardware, which they overcharge you for, right? And they make all their money. If you could get all the Apple shinies on other platforms besides Apple hardware, they would actually have to make their money on non-hardware, or they'd have to make or they would basically lose all their profit margin because their hardware would now have to compete with the other hardware on a level playing field, and Apple would basically just go.
Well,
the thing is, business. They'd have to. What would they do? What would their business model be?
The thing is, right now, for certain kinds of industrial design, no one even comes close to Apple. A competitor
right, okay,
would
so they
have
have this
to
better
appear.
industrial design, but they can only charge so much more for it if OS X runs on other devices. And
But if they dropped all of their development teams, except for the iPhone stuff, they'd probably be fine.
No, because then no one would. Because then no one would use the OS X. Everyone would use Windows, and then no one would use a Mac.
No,
right?
because
they'd have to start selling Macs with Windows on them.
They'd probably just let the open source community make OS whatever.
Because if they don't control the whole experience, the whole thing falls apart. Because the reason that Apple's stuff gives you the experience it does is because they unify the hardware and the soft. You know, it's like look at Android. Android is designed for any sort of phone, right? So what do you get? You get these funky ass devices that don't have like a headphone hole and shit like that, right? But the iPhone software is built assuming you have an iPhone with this one button, and right, it's the hardware software unity that makes the stuff work that way. And if the OS X was just done in an open source way, just to make it as good as possible, it would be awesome, right? But you wouldn't have that Apple unified experience where the hardware and the software go together. Like you have that eject button in the top right of the keyboard, and the OS, ejects when you hold it down for some.
But at the same
time,
time,
any of that.
There would probably be among all the forks of OS X and OS 11 and
you wouldn't
OS
have
50,
like the multi-finger gestures and the giant touchpad.
But Scott, of all the different forks and things, the craziness that would happen, I expect that there would be one fork that was predominantly controlled by Apple fanboys.
Yeah, but Apple fanboys are much, the problem with that, right, is I know that sounds good.
I'm not saying it sounds good. I'm saying that they might keep the spirit alive.
No, something I've learned is that fanboys ruin the spirit. Think about this. That's like letting people in the tribes forums write tribes. It's not going to work. Not at all. You can't let the people who play the game write the game. It's just a mess.
Or Scott,
letting
what you
Magic the Gathering players write Magic the Gathering cards.
I guess let me put it in this perspective. What if it was open source and Steve Jobs and
there's the Steve Jobs fork, just like there's the
and whoever he delegated, he would bless one fork. And he would approve different releases of that fork as, you can use whatever one you want. It's all open source. But this is the one that Apple says is the good one.
Somehow I don't think he would like any of them as soon as it got open source. And he'd start saying, do this, do that. And people who said he'd have to start dealing with this kind of shit Linus Torvalds deals with, where people actually tell him he's wrong.
But the thing is,
Steve Jobs can't deal with that shit.
I love the man, but he's an asshole.
Oh, I didn't say he wasn't an asshole, but I'm saying, people in the open source world have to deal with, people arguing with them and telling them they're wrong and actually having debates over decisions. Steve Jobs just says, it's my way or the highway. And I don't think he could deal with someone telling him no. And if it's open source, even if there's the Steve Jobs blessed version, and maybe he has some fanboys who do his bidding,
enough people would do his bidding, sadly.
The thing is, someone would eventually come and be like, Steve Jobs, this is a bad, dumbass idea. You should do it this way instead. And he'd be like, da, 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 da. It's like, you get forks and
but Scott, that wouldn't be any
situation.
That wouldn't be any different than it is now.
No, but
just
Steve
Steve
Jobs would basically have a heart attack to go with his liver action, and the thing is, the end.
None of that's going to happen.
No, it's not.
And the more interesting question is what would be the actual ramifications of if Microsoft just Bill Gates was like, you know what? It's over. And everything was just Windows was open source and that was it.
Well, Microsoft make a lot less money. I mean, Microsoft really doesn't have a way to make money. They're not like Apple selling hardware. They sell Windows. If Windows is open source, right? Because think about this. This has been a hot topic lately. When you're a Linux guy, right? Linux is free. You can install it 1 billion times, no problem, right? So when you want to set up a cluster, it's no big deal. It's like, we'll get a bunch of hardware, a bunch of machines, and we'll install Linux on all of them, right? When you're a Windows guy, setting up one gigantic, crazy, powerful computer instead of a cluster is a good idea. And it's like, what are you, crazy? No one does the one giant machine anymore. Everyone does the bunch of cheap machines. That's the way to do it. But with Windows, a bunch of cheap machines, you have to buy a copy of Windows for each machine. Now the machines aren't cheap anymore because you're buying a $200 copy of Windows for all the machines. You got 5 machines, that's an extra $1,000. You're paying 6 machines worth of money for 5 machines. If you need 10 machines, it's at $2,000. It's crazy. So Windows people, it's actually sort of good idea to get the one big machine and install Windows on it once, and think about it, that's only Windows. If you're doing a Microsoft platform, you got to buy SQL Server, you got to buy maybe Office, you got to buy Exchange Server, who knows what you're putting on there. All the Microsoft server stuff costs money, lots of money, tons of money, So one big machine is a good idea with Microsoft. If it was open source and people could just there was no Windows licenses and no, licenses for any of the Microsoft software, people would start installing Windows and everything. Tons, machines, and Microsoft wouldn't get any money from that. And they wouldn't get money from anything. And that's it. They would get money for what? For supporting, Red Hat? They'd be in the poorhouse. Microsoft would turn from, this giant world-conquering company into, a one-building situation.
But that's pretty much expected. What would happen in the community? I mean, there would
Oh,
be.
there would be crazy action with Windows, like I was
The thing is,
talking about before.
I think with Windows specifically, just because of the way the architecture is and the way it would take at least a couple of years for the community to grasp the code enough to make meaningful and safe changes to it.
No, I don't think it would be about making safe changes.
Well, no, I think
to
what it would be is what would really happen. People would go in and find the specific bits that they needed to know how they work, like different APIs or different functions under the covers, and port them elsewhere.
Absolutely, it would be a raid. It'd be like, holy shit! It's like the same. What if Photoshop was open source, right?
Like we just get NTFS on Linux like that, and NTFS.
Well, I think if Photoshop,
it's pretty solid.
I mean, if Photoshop was open source, people might modify it, but I think mostly the GIMP would just have a field day and raid it for all the filtering algorithms and stuff. And they'd be like, well, Photoshop plugins work in the GIMP now. They'd just be raiding it, stealing all the good out. What if the NVIDIA driver was open source, right? They would be a raid. They would take that shit and put it right in the kernel. Like, it would take a day, if not less. They just be like, here's all those algorithms that we didn't know. Here's how here's all the secrets of how that hardware works. Let's steal all that shit. Well, it wouldn't be stealing because it'd be open source, but they would just take all the good stuff and they would use it elsewhere as opposed to fixing it in its, in its current place. You'd get the GIMP would be doing like all that stuff the Photoshop does that everyone complains about. You'd get like support for, all those weird webcams and stuff in Linux just suddenly, all that kind of stuff. There wouldn't be that much modifying of Windows to do other things, because if you start doing that, you'd actually break more than you fixed, right? Because, Windows, all these things are built to work on Windows in a certain way. You know what someone might do? They might do the no registry Windows fork. I could see that. Someone make a fork of Windows that doesn't have a registry that has like a CouchDB instead.
The thing is, it would serve the same purpose.
No, but a CouchDB would outperform
the real problem with the registry
is a file system situation.
The real problem with the registry is partly that Windows has no real capability to refresh without rebooting.
Yeah, someone making no reboot Windows unless you update the Windows kernel. You get all sorts of stuff like that, maybe, but mostly if stuff became open sourced, like if OS X became open source, the next day Linux and GNOME would have like the most beautiful font rendering in the universe. They would just steal OS X font rendering in the drop shadows. They'd be like, thank you.
So the moral here is that OS X and Microsoft Windows will never, ever, ever be open source because it would destroy both companies.
Probably not, no. It might happen if like someone with a ton of money just buys them out. It might happen if here's something I don't understand, right? What they should do to sort of get the most, because they're not maximizing what they're doing, right? What they should do is they should follow id Software model. Is when Windows 7 comes out, open source XP. You don't need to open source Vista, but open source the XP, right? No one's or at least open source like Windows 2000 or NT or 3.1. It's so old. There's nothing. What is in there?
You
need to. XP. There's maybe something in there, but
I can say there's two reasons. One, there's probably some code in there they don't want out. They're worried that people might find exploits that made their way into more modern versions.
Oh no! The wine can already run any Windows 3.1 programs.
More importantly, there are probably patent and
that's a legal situation. I'm talking about business. But the thing is, the legal
situation is the primary reason.
Yeah.
OS 2 Warp, we finished using it. We had version 4.5 at IBM. We used it. And yet we know it'll never be open source. And I have OS 2 Warp 4.5.
My first computer
but there are so
that
many,
we owned in my house had OS 2 Warp.
There are so many IP
IBM Aptiva
pieces
440.
owned by all these different companies and so many patents and so much stuff on the inside that'll never be open source. It's lost to the world.
Yeah, but why doesn't Apple open source like OS 9? Because then people could do all this awesome OS 9 shit and it would be cool. And, who need, OS 10, keep it your closed source, obviously. But, open source the OS 9. It would be awesome, and everyone would do all this. You'd be able to run OS 9 apps, or 1 through 9 apps on Linux. It would be totally cool. And everyone would get all, like, these old Mac games. It'd be sweet. And you wouldn't need to get, like, a Mac Plus like I have in my closet.
All right. I think we're done.
We are done.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.